Tashidelek, Pakarasang, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to Wednesdays with Rinpoche. So tonight, our Wednesday live talk from India, and our regular Wednesday talk. Last 2 weeks, we have been studying on the first true noble truth, the truth of suffering, the truth of cause, and so today we are on this third noble truth, which is called the truth of cessation. So when Buddha actually taught on the truth of cessation, there is three actually simple line that Buddha taught, which was originally translated from Sanskrit into Tibetan. And so in Tibetan, it actually goes like this: Dini Goba Phagbe Dembao. So that's the first line. And then what does that mean? This is the truth of cessation. So it is actually simple, right? Sort of like if we actually look at that, then this is the truth of cessation. So what is actually that means? Dini Gopa Phagbe Dembao. So somehow, in the first truth, then like the truth of suffering, which we all wanted to be free from suffering, right? And then, and this the nature of suffering that we are experiencing. So somehow this suffering doesn't come without any cause or condition. So somehow it has a cause, it has a condition, and so the third noble truth, which is actually cessation, means stop, right? So it is actually a very big question, right? If we have if we are experiencing suffering, we have a problem, we have an issue, and somehow the issue doesn't come without any cause. So somehow there is a cause too. So if we wanted to overcome the problem, overcome the suffering, if we wanted to free from suffering, then it's a big question, right? There's a big question. Is it possible? Is it possible to stop suffering? Is it possible to cease our experiences of suffering? So that is actually a big question, right? So somehow, so this truth, the third noble truth, which is actually saying that this is the truth of cessation. So still, look, we have to actually look at this Buddha's statement, like when he said Dini, this is in Tibetan Dini, so in English it is like this is, right? So somehow, so this is the truth of cessation. So the cessation of suffering is going to happen, right? So somehow in us. So then like this, like how does Buddha actually made this statement saying this is the, right? This is, so somehow it is like pointing this. So this is somehow what is meant by this, where he is referring this to. So in Tibetan we say that sem ge chunyi, so means nature of mind. So the nature of our mind, somehow this our mind, by nature, somehow it is pure, somehow it is stainless, somehow there's a basic goodness, right, in our mind. So mind or the consciousness that we have, so somehow our, it is actually saying our true nature, whatever we are, right, whatever we are, however we exist. So somehow we exist somehow without any suffering, right? Somehow without any afflictions, without any negativities. So it is naturally we are, if we don't think from just a philosophical point of view, just from a realistic point of view, we as a being, we as a human being, we are, right? We are actually born as a pure being. We are born as a loving being. We are born as a, full of light being. We are born as a the enlightenment is in our nature. So enlightenment is nothing but the cessation, right? It's a cessation. So it is the cessation, in Tibetan word, it is a gokpa. So this gokpa, sort of like a gokbe demba. So this cessation, somehow, it naturally exists in us. So that is why, like Buddha said, this is the truth of cessation. So the cessation or the it is saying that this suffering is temporary. So in samsara, whatever we are experiencing in samsara, it's a temporary. Ultimately, it is it is free from suffering. So that is why it is this temporary suffering that we are experiencing in samsara, it is ceasable, it is stoppable. So somehow it will stop, and that what we in Tibetan we say dunge telrung, means it is the cessation of suffering is attainable. Cessation of suffering, a stopping of suffering. So somehow, in another words, it means happiness, right? The free from suffering is a happiness, right? And happiness is just a it is a cessation of suffering. So somehow it is if we are looking for happiness, and if we are all looking to be free from suffering, right? Especially when it comes to compassion. When it comes to compassion, it is when we genuinely wishing ourselves to be free from suffering, that is a self-compassion. When we wish other sentient beings to be free from suffering, then that is a compassion towards the other beings, right? So it is when to have this a genuine, right? Genuinely wishing to be yourself and all sentient beings to be free from suffering. So this somehow we need to know that is the happiness attainable? Is the free from suffering is attainable? Is it possible? Is it possible that we will achieve happiness? Is it possible that all the sentient beings will achieve happiness? So if our answer is no, it is not possible, right? Somehow, if we say it is not possible to achieve happiness. So it somehow it is just like wishing for happiness is just a wishy-washy thing. Then it is not a genuine, right? Genuine wish to free yourself and other sentient beings from suffering will not actually come, right? Even though we can say from our mouth, we say, okay, I wish me and all sentient beings to be free from suffering. And then if we ask this question to ourselves, if you are really praying for that, if you are really wishing for that, then do you think that you will achieve happiness? You will be free from suffering? Then if our answer is maybe, right, it's just kind of okay, optimistically, I'm thinking like that, but I don't know, maybe it is attainable, maybe free from suffering is something we can achieve, so it's kind of like if we kind of live in that sort of maybe thing, then then just kind of this wishing, right, this willing to be free from suffering, willing to achieve happiness will actually not become very strong, or it will not become genuine. It is just like your wish is also maybe, right? It's just just kind of not sure thing. So that is why it is very important. So it is very important to understand this third noble truth, which is when Buddha said, this is the truth of cessation. So this is the truth of cessation. So somehow it is like dunge terum, means suffering. Suffering is separable, right? Suffering is separable from our being. Suffering can be stopped. Suffering can be ceased, right? The suffering can be ceased, sort of so. To be able to understand that, then we have to actually understand the true nature of mind, right? True nature of mind, which is semgi chunyi in Tibetan, we say semgi chunyi, the true nature, right? The ultimate nature of our mind. So then when it comes to this ultimate nature of our mind, then it is so when we actually go in to look what is the ultimate nature of our mind, then somehow the observer, when you are actually analyzing, right? When you are analyzing, when you are observing the nature of our mind, then the mind is looking, right? It's just mind is looking at its own nature. So that is kind of somehow we have this term called in Soso Rangri, right? Soso Rangri. Soso Rangri Rikpa means Soso means self, right? Self-aware. So self-aware, sort of so somehow being aware of yourself, and then sort of when you are being aware of yourself, so mind is the observer, and then the nature of the mind, somehow if you start looking at the nature of mind, kind of putting aside from your mind, then it is just kind of you are actually looking outside of the frame of the mind, right? Outside of the frame of the mind. So somehow where we are actually looking for the true nature of mind, if you are looking for the true nature of your mind outside of the frame of your mind, then you will never find, right? You will never find the true nature, right? The true nature of the mind, it is inseparable, right? The nature of mind is inseparable from the mind. And then when you are actually looking at your mind, so mind is an observer, and then when we are actually in this kind of when we are observing, when we are being aware of our mind by our mind, that is a little bit difficult to understand, isn't it? It is difficult to so it is just because we are very familiar with when we say, I'm watching, I'm being aware, sort of like, we are very aware of sort of like how we do the watching. Like if we are looking at a flower, then the flower is there, and then like we have an eye, and then so observer is here, right? So we actually think that observer is here and flower is there, and then there is a contact, right? So the contact, sort of like the flower, like the outside condition, right? So outside condition is there, the flower is hit by the light, and then it becomes visible. And so then when the flower become visible, then your eyes also need all the conditions, right? All the condition sort of like kind of like a gather. So if your eye has all the condition that is gather with the eye sense and eye consciousness and everything, then we can say, okay, I see, right? Like I see, I perceive the flower. So many times, like when we are actually looking, when we are watching, when we are sort of like perceiving something, we are very familiar with the perceiving kind of like with the duality, sort of like dual, like there and observer is here and object is there. So we always bring that kind of like what do you call that talent, that skill when we are actually looking at our mind. So that is why somehow this kind of like ordinary way of observing, watching and perceiving doesn't apply when we are looking at the true nature of our mind. So then the big question is, then how can I perceive my own mind, right? Because perceiver itself is the mind, and then it's kind of like the object is also the mind. So somehow it is like you have to see, sort of like yourself, sort of like perceiving yourself. Perceiving yourself is kind of like you have to go a little bit beyond, right? Beyond conception. So beyond conception. So that is why, like kind of like a semgi chunyi, that is the true nature of mind. So the nature of mind. So if somehow this true nature of mind, so sometimes the words are a little tricky, right? When we say this true nature of mind, or the free from the suffering, like the what do you call this state of free from suffering, or state of happiness is achievable, right? Attainable, sort of like, then somehow it is almost like you are going to make it or construct it, right? So then kind of like many times in the Buddha's teaching, actually Buddha said that this cessation of suffering. So somehow this cessation of suffering, sometimes the cessation of suffering is also called the nirvana, nyangde deva. That is like a nirvana. So this somehow it is this cessation of suffering is not something you can construct. You cannot make it. So that is why it is called dimache. Dimache means unconstructed. It is something that you don't make it. You don't make it. So that is why to bring that kind of like to bring that clear, then the second line Buddha said, Opa Mundu Cha. So this one actually in English actually it is translated as the cessation should be realized. So now this one, what do you think? When Buddha said, this is the truth of cessation. So somehow it is saying, yes, it is seizable, suffering can be stopped, and there's this something that stopping of kind of suffering is actually is kind of like somehow right here in our kind of ultimately our kind of suffering, temporarily suffering is there, but ultimately it is not there. Affliction is temporarily there, but ultimately it is not there. Then Gogwang Cha, that the second line, which means the cessation should be realized. So this is actually a very powerful word. When Buddha said cessation should be realized. So in Tibetan word, it is like a Gokwa, Nguandu Cha. Nguandu means kind of like a, it is something, Nguambar means bringing it into light, or kind of bringing it into light. So it is like it is not like if you are sitting in a dark room, and then you know there is a object, right? There is a like an object, and then when you actually kind of when you bring the light, then actually you are, you know, that object become visible, right? That object become visible, right? So somehow it is kind of like a like when you actually observe the object, that the object is already there in the dark, but the only thing you don't see that is because there is no light, or there's another metaphor. There's another metaphor that you are sitting in the light, you know, full of light room. So it is kind of like you are sitting in the light, like the light room that is filled with the light. And then only thing that you are not seeing anything, right? You are not seeing anything is because you close your eyes. So it is just kind of like when you actually sort of like when you open your eyes, then what happened? What happened is that you just realize that you just see everything. It is not that this kind of like naturally you are already in the light, but you think that you are in a dark because you think that you don't see anything. You don't see anything because your eyes are closed. So under that circumstances, to be able to see everything, then as soon as you open your own eyes, then what happened? You realize that it is full of light, right? You realize that it is full of light. You are already in the light. You are actually, you didn't create any light. You didn't construct any light. You actually, when you actually see everything, is why you see everything is because it is not that you brought yourself into the light. It is not that you actually made an effort, right? You made an effort to bring that light, and it is not like that. It is because you just open your eyes. When you just open your own eyes, then what happened? It is like you achieve, right? So we can say you attain the light, you attain the state of light, you achieve this, all things, kind of seeing things clearly. It is like, it is not because you made it, right? You didn't make all these things that you see. Only thing what you did is you just open your eyes. So it is like, naturally you have eyes, that you are able to see. And everything is also very clear. The only thing what is happening is we just close our eyes. So Gogwang Cha. So Cha means kind of like you just made yourself realize. You just made yourself realize. So that is why this cessation of suffering. So somehow you need to open, right? You need to open your wisdom eyes. You need to open your wisdom eyes, and then you will realize. So that is why, see, cessation should be realized. So this, the word realize is a very powerful, right? In many terms in the Buddhism, Buddha, when Buddha teach, like he used a lot of word. This is called the tokpa, right? Sort of tokpa means something kind of like bringing clear, sort of like making clear, and then also sort of like realize. I think the English word realization is actually fitting very well with this kind of the true nature of mind and the cessation of suffering. So somehow it is like you have to realize, means it is like it is something that you already have, and then you, it is just like okay, I realize, like something that you know already, and then you kind of like somehow you don't believe that you don't know it, and then suddenly kind of like just kind of like I realize that I already knew that, sort of like. So that is the word realize. So that is why when you achieve some sort of like a spiritual what you call, when you advance spiritually, then many times we use the word realization, right? Realization, sort of like a realization, sort of like a, so also it is also meaning real, means kind of the reality, right? Reality, real, truth, sort of like a, so you actually understand what it is. You actually understand, sort of like a, you realize your own mind, means you realize what your mind is. It is just kind of not like a, like you can believe, okay, this is the nature of my mind, this is the quality of my mind, and this is somehow in our kind of like affliction, like in the affliction state, like most of the time, whatever we are thinking, right, all these conceptual thoughts that we have, even like what we think of, right, what we think of ourselves, what we think of all the existence, what we think of the universe, what we think of the life, what we think of anything. So all the things that what we think, somehow we conceptualize, right? We conceptualize it, and so then it is kind of like our afflictive mind somehow projected something, and we believe that. We believe kind of like we filter it through our own sort of like negativities or negative experiences, or kind of like negative kind of like afflictions, negative emotions, negative stories. So many kind of things that we filter through our this kind of our own story, and then like we actually kind of, when we look at everything in our life, like we look at the things, we look at the house, we look at the car, we look at our life, we look at the world, we look at the universe. So somehow all these things that we are actually looking, are we actually really looking what it is? Are we, is that the reality? That is the question, right? Is that the reality? Like everything that we think how they are, how everything exists, is that a reality or not? Right? So somehow in like we kind of like not totally realize, but many times we actually stumble upon, oh, that is not, you know, like this is not as I think, this is not as I thought. Like we kind of come to many things like that, right? So that is why it is kind of like a realization. Realize means knowing what it is. Reality of it is. Reality means what it is, right? It is not something that what we made up. It's not something what we projected, right? So it's kind of reality, the truth. So that is why like the cessation should be realized, and that is what the Buddha said in the second line. Okay, so second line, it is kind of like somehow it is important to know the cessation, the truth of cessation. So the truth of cessation is or should be realized. It should be realized. It is not something that you don't have to make anything. You just have to realize what you are, what it is. So somehow, when Buddha achieved enlightenment, so that time it is called the realization. So it is like the complete realization, right? When you have a complete realization of yourself and complete realization of the what it is, without any contradiction with anything. So that is the state of enlightenment, right? So that is why so the cessation should be realized. So this cessation, right? This cessation of suffering, this cessation, so somehow this cessation actually happens, right? It happens in our own mind. It happens in all, it's kind of like, it is something that it is already kind of, ultimately, it is, there is no suffering in our being, in our mind. It is just all projected, it's just only conceptualized. So somehow, you have to realize that. So when you realize that, then it is kind of you, which is called the Gobedemba, the truth of cessation. And then the third line, which actually Buddha said, the cessation should be realized, and it is not there to realize. Then again, sort of like it is kind of going more deeper. So cessation should be realized, and it is not there to realize. That is, again, like if you look at the simple word, like a meaning, it is not there, right? So it is kind of bringing back to, how he started Dini, like this is the truth of cessation, right? So this is the truth of cessation, how he began that from here, and then again when he ends that word, it is saying it is not there to realize. It is actually, what is the meaning? It is not there to realize, it is here. It is here. So it's like when you are, like how you are actually going to realize is, just don't go to look for the realization somewhere else. So the realization will actually happen in our own mind, right? So that is kind of like how simple it is. Yet it is a very it is like all the essence of the Buddha teaching, sort of like a realization, right? Enlightenment. So somehow, once we know that kind of like the suffering is seizable, suffering is stoppable, then it's just kind of like when we are actually on this path to on this path to realize, then kind of like our aspiration, right? Our aspiration to free ourselves and all sentient beings from suffering is become more sort of like what do you call? It is more sort of like a doable, right? It's more doable. So that also kind of helps you to bring that courage. So if not, then it's just kind of like just wishing all sentient beings and yourself free from suffering. It's a good, right? It's just a good thought, or it's just a good wish. It's just a good prayer, but it just remain as just a wish. It just remain as a willingness. Then it will not go any further, right? So that is why when you actually have a kind of like this willingness to free yourself and all sentient beings from suffering by knowing that suffering is stoppable, suffering is seizable, then your compassion will be totally different, right? Your compassion will be totally different. It is just totally different than kind of like just wishing everybody to be free from suffering. So it is just kind of like when you are actually looking at the suffering, so like knowing that the nature of the suffering. So this nature of the suffering, it is just a temporary. It is just a temporary, and temporarily, like the sentient beings going through suffering, it is kind of like it is sad, right? It is sad, but then when you are looking at the suffering, it is not like, okay, so they are suffering, and then they are suffering totally, ultimately they are suffering. Then somehow you actually lose hope, right? You lose kind of courage. It is like so if they are always going to be suffering like that, then what is the point of me actually concerned about their suffering, right? So the concern, you will lose the concern. You will actually not really kind of like go and help other sentient beings. So that is why the third noble truth is very important. It is very important to know that to know that the nature of the suffering. So the suffering is seizable. So to able to know that suffering is seizable, stoppable, means you have to know that whatever, any suffering in samsara is just a temporary, right? Temporary. And so like when you actually look at the suffering as a temporary, and then you are actually looking beyond, right? You're looking beyond the suffering, that ultimately it is stoppable, it is attainable, right? It is what you call seizable, right? The free from suffering is attainable. So kind of like how you are actually looking, right? When you are looking at that, so your compassion actually will become little different, right? It just little become different. It is not like a totally losing hope kind of compassion. So it is like when you are, when you actually looking beyond, when you see the suffering as a temporary, and ultimately there is, ultimately it is going to be, all sentient beings are going to be free from suffering. And why? Because we all have this mind, true nature of mind, ZaChoeje. So ZaChoeje, so true nature of mind, so somehow we all have this potential. We all kind of looking, ultimately it is kind of like it is free from all the suffering, something like that, all right? So that is kind of like a little bit kind of like these three lines meaning, right? This is the truth of cessation. Cessation, and the cessation means gopa. Gopa means stop, right? Cease, right? Cease means something that stop. So it is just kind of like a, like a cease means sort of absence, right? Absence, like we are actually going through like a kind of rolling, kind of experiencing suffering, and then suddenly cease means stop, sort of like a stop, kind of like a, kind of stop struggling, stop struggling. So it is kind of like stopping from struggling, struggling over the struggle, right? When you stop struggling over the struggle, then that is called the cessation. So if not, then it will become sort of like a, what do you call, snowball, right? Like our life, sort of like first it is a rolling, and then first it was a small snowball, and then as it goes down and down, it becomes bigger. So somehow, when it stops, then it's just kind of like everything, all the suffering, kind of like we will know that it's temporary, and it will kind of like cease the suffering. So that is why that kind of cessation of the suffering, that kind of cessation, actually this somehow it is, we have to realize that. It is something to realize. It is something that we already have. Ultimately, it is there. That is something we have to realize. And then third line, means cessation of this cessation should be realized, and it is not there to realize. It should be here. So, and it is also this realization itself is not inherently exist. It is not like how it exists, but it is exists also dependently. It doesn't exist independently. Somehow it is it exists interdependently. So the realization is also exists interdependently. So somehow it is actually the third line is teaching the inherent like absence of inherently existence, emptiness. Also, it is actually teaching the ultimate truth of the mind. Also, all right. So that is for this Wednesday, and so I hope everybody is doing well. And so in here in India, kind of like still a lot of struggles with the pandemics, and hopefully that this will all come soon. And so here where I am, so there are a few cases even in the Tibetan village that few people are actually kind of like it's more than usual. So in our community that we are living, sort of like so our community is around maybe 15,000 people population, and but like we have like maybe 250 something active cases of COVID-19. So luckily we don't have so much issues with oxygen, sort of like in many parts of India cities. I think they are having a little bit struggle over the finding oxygens and things like that. But here in our local hospital, still it is manageable. Many people actually got into hospital, but they are also recovering, and so recovering rate is very good. And then I just heard some good news saying that some research that is coming from Singapore actually saying that by May 21, India COVID case will go down. Like it will go down maybe 97% or something, and like in the end of June, then India will be 100% free from COVID-19. So I hope that whoever they are doing the prediction or research, I hope that it is right, and I pray that may all people who are struggling from this pandemic, and so kind of like free, like all the family who are actually living in panics and stuff, may they all be free from this panic and struggle. So and I also request all of you to keep sending your prayers. All right. Okay, so I think here for today I see on my iPad screen, so as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't show, if you are making comments, it doesn't, maybe it will show on my original kind of device that is I'm using, but here where I am looking is I'm looking at my another device, which is sometimes I see your comments and sometimes I don't see it. So anyway, like here I see David Komito Tashidelek and Dennis Shaver saying thank you for your teaching, you are welcome, Tashidelek. And Paris Moshe Parwa, Tashidelek Parwa. And then Uyen Doen, Tashidelek Uyen. And then I see Miyako Kusaka, Tashidelek, Kero Inglestick, Tashidelek, Helen Person, Tashidelek, Jitka Marigold, Tashidelek, Sonia Ondish Tashidelek, Tundrup Yelka Sang Tashidelek, Mary K. Moses, thanks for sharing your wisdom. You are welcome, and Tashidelek. And then Tirza, Tashidelek Tirza. Sandra Braza, thank you, Rinpoche, Tashidelek, and you're welcome. And GT Joanne, Tien Tashidelek Tien. And Miyuki Onezawa Watanabe, thank you so much for your powerful teaching. Thank you, and you're welcome. And Regula Stewart from Ernie and Regula, Tashidelek, Ernie and Regula. Thank you for this wonderful teaching. We are very grateful. Thank you. And David Kumido, as a practice, how can we use our mind to understand the ultimate nature of mind? How can we use our mind to understand the ultimate nature of mind? It is so somehow kind of like how we use our mind. It is like of course, like understanding the ultimate nature of mind. Somehow, it is to be understand, right? It is to be understand by our own mind. So somehow, there's like the mind is the mind is the observer, right? It is the observer. So when you actually observe like your mind without actually separating, right? Without separating. So somehow it is like when you actually watch your mind, it is something that you have to watch your mind by actually actually being it, sort of being sort of like being your mind. So being the mind, so it is something to actually go beyond, right? It's something go beyond kind of like it is more sort of like I think sometimes it helps, it helps me to understand. Sometimes we have to use the language, right? So it is like observing your mind by experiencing it, sort of like, so it's kind of like you let yourself experience your own mind. So experiencing the ultimate nature of mind, first when sort of like you totally sort of not keeping it as an object, sort of like your mind is there. Sometimes, we kind of like say that guarding, sort of like we say, okay, your mind is this, and then on the side of, on the side of it, you're just kind of like watching like your mind. I don't know, sometimes that is a little bit misleading, right? It's a little bit misleading. Sort of then our mind will actually think that, okay, sort of like, so there is some kind of object that is called mind, and then there is some kind of like another mind that is actually watching, sort of like so it is like your mind become like a flashlight, right? So somehow you cannot watch your ultimate nature of mind by being like yourself like a flashlight. So it is just kind of like watching the mind is like being itself, sort of like being the light, sort of like being the light itself. So it's kind of like if we think that like ultimate, like watching, right, understanding the ultimate nature of mind, how you watch it is you watch it by being it. You're being it. So this is something that we need to experience. It is not something that it is difficult to put it into word, but somehow it is like you just kind of like be it, be whatever it is, sort of like so there's a difference between watching the thoughts and watching the mind. I think so. It's kind of like watching the thought is another thing, and then watching mind is another thing, I think. So anyway, so David saying thank you Rinpoche for this profound teaching from Kela Tashidele Kela. And then I see Ninju, prostration to Guru Deva Master, Tashidelek Ninju, and your grace and teaching makes our aspiration for peace real. Melt our snowball of suffering, Master, by making us realize the need for self-awareness. You give us hope, courage, and mental strength to look behind the present, which is impermanent. And Master, you keep grounding us to what is real, to stop being so focused on what is out there, necessary and not beneficial. Namo Namaha. All right, so that is a good comment. And then I see Alex Norden, Tashidelek, Tashidelek Rinpoche, Tashidelek. Do you recommend any additional or extra practice for this month of the Sakatawa? Traditionally during the Sakatawa month, we actually sort of like do sort of like a lot of, I personally do a lot of studies on praising of the Buddhas, especially the Tendeteva, sort of what we call, the Master Tsongkhapa wrote this dependent origination praise, right? And then kind of like, I read that and then contemplate on the meaning, and then sort of like, do a little bit more extra practice, kind of like a prostration and praising and, kind of like appreciating Buddha's teaching, and then applying what Buddha has taught, sort of like those things, sort of like, of course, those are the things that we have to do on our regular basis, but kind of doing it a little bit more on Sakatawa. And then generally, like sort of like, during this Sakatawa month, because it is like a Buddha's, Buddha's birthday and Buddha's enlightenment day, month, right? And birth month, enlightened month, and also anniversary, Parinirvana month. But some people actually believe that today, right, the 7th of the 4th lunar month is Buddha's actual birthday. But I don't know, that is kind of like, we actually don't know, but today, some, from in the kind of history, some group and some people actually say that he was born on. But anyway, Sakatawa, it happened on the Sakatawa, right, the 4th lunar month. So during this month, like even people who are not kind of vegetarian, traditionally they actually become vegetarian, and then somehow they do more prayers and stuff like that. So if you have a lot of practice that came from Buddha Shakyamuni, then kind of like do more of those like extra practice on understanding the Buddha's teaching, sort of like. So somehow this, Wednesdays on the Sakatawa, we have been studying Four Noble Truths, and that is also good to, this kind of like, because understanding the basic Buddha's teaching on Four Noble Truths is kind of something extra practice to be done too. All right, Alex. And then Helen Person saying, Dear Rinpoche, in my language, realize is translated to the word insi, Swedish. Okay, insi have to part inward, and to inward. In means inward, and se means see. Okay, seeing inward. That's a beautiful word. Realize, sort of like a more sort of seeing inside. Oh, thank you, Helen. Meaning to see inward. In se can also be translated as understand. Okay, so that is a also understand is also good word, right? Understand, sort of like you are standing, like realize, understand, always present true reality if we look inward at our mind. Yes, I think that is sort of like kind of like many times when we actually look at things, we always looking outwardly, right? Outwardly. So inwardly, sort of like that is something not so we are familiar with, right? We are not so familiar with looking inward. So inwardly looking. I think that is a beautiful meaning for the realize in Swedish, inse. Yeah. Okay, so then Ninju is saying, Master, then all we can do is declutter our mind. Yes, I think if that is impossible, you know, I think so there is a unnecessary cluttering kind of like happens or kind of like we clutter our mind, and not only during this life, right? In many past life also we put a lot of construction, right? A lot of cluttering. So I think you know, when you actually sort of like declutter means kind of like when you understand the true nature of mind, somehow you will realize that many of the things that we have collected, we have constructed, are kind of like not necessary. So somehow you don't have to do any extra work to declutter. But I think once you understand the true nature of mind, then everything is just sort of like it is just a story, right? A story that is created by your own mind. So sort of like so these all things will become sort of like more clear, right? So it is kind of when the realization happens, so somehow it will actually kind of like you realize that many things that we have been perceiving is not necessary or something like that. All right. All right. So I think so that is our teaching for tonight, and so next Wednesday is Sagadawa full moon on kind of like I think in Wednesday, I think same, right? Wednesday 26, and there will be I think India morning time there will be a teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama on three principal path life teaching, and then as usual on the Wednesday night we will also talk, and then we will talk on the fourth noble truth, which is the truth of path, right? All right. So thank you all very much, and have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening, and see you next week. All right.